Hello, my love, and welcome back. Today we are diving into the 9th insight, the final insight in the Celestine prophecy. And as you can probably imagine, if you've been following along for the previous 8 insights, this one helps tie everything together. And so I'm really excited to dive in, and there's actually some really cool parts from this that I have had personal experiences with that were absolutely wild and very out of this world. And I'm excited to tie that in and share my own experience of how I've seen this show up in my reality and why I believe that there's actually so much truth to what is being shared in, again, not only this insight, but all of them. So let's get started. The 9th insight is about the connection to culture and how this creates the new kind of reality, the new world, the new way that we live with one another in community and what takes place. So it's like the emerging culture is what it's called in here. So the previous insights, we talked about relating to one another and the different ways that conscious communication can take place, not only with how we treat children and give them our full attention and energy and that unconditional loving energy so that they can be poured into and so that they can grow up being able to then transfer that and receive directly from source itself and feel that level of wholeness and fullness and connection. We also talked about the connection to when you're in a group and the power dynamics. If they're no longer there because everyone is connected to source, then we're actually able to project our energy and pour into one another, which supports them and allows their highest self and their true gifts to come through. And we also touched on the fact that when you are giving, you're also receiving, how there is this interconnectedness between people where if you are open to it and if you're able to follow the intuitions and the signs, you will see that every single person on your path has the ability to give you something, that little breadcrumb or puzzle piece or missing light bulb that is going to support you. And vice versa, you always have something you can give them. So when we are living from our hearts and souls, when we are trusting our connection to source and trusting our alignment, we will be able to live in this beautiful interconnectedness weaving where we are giving and receiving at all times. And that brings us into the emerging culture, or the 9th insight. So the very first part we get to hear about in the book has to do with the human culture changing in the next millennium as a result of conscious evolution. So what it goes into here is this kind of return to simpler times, in that there will be just like a way bigger understanding of what benefits each of us. So this book talks a lot about recharging in nature and how nature is one of the most beautiful ways for us to connect and fill our cups. And the trees especially take a high premise in this book. So they're sharing about a reality where people start to respect nature a lot more and are living out in nature, being one with nature, while also having the developments of technology, but in the cities. And like we could go down into major rabbit holes in this in terms of technology and the waves that are radiating from this device right now, even as I'm filming this video, right? The ways that this is actually damaging to our health, and being in environments with constant stimulation and electronics and advancing technology isn't necessarily ideal for our vessels, but there are so many beautiful positive things that it can contribute to the world. And so part of the 9th insight discusses those future civilizations where people will be working less, which we'll get into next, but going into these highly advanced cities and technologically advanced places, but then actually living way more connected to the earth like we did generations ago. So I love that part, but what it got into even more from there was how our natural evolution, our personal evolution, isn't based on the economic structures that we have been programmed to believe in. And if you need to, I highly recommend going back to the second insight, because that is where we did the kind of timeline view and overview perspective of the last, I think it was the last 1,000 years maybe, right? We talked about the Middle Ages, and we talked about the deep belief in religion and church and priests being the mediator for God, and then how that shifted, and then it kind of turned into more a science-based, let's find the answers, let's study it first. And while people were off studying and finding answers for us, we began building, and how can we make ourselves comfortable and safe and create stability and truly just build the economies that we have now. But that brings us to the present timeline where people were realizing there is more than that. And so the ninth insight starts to dive into the fact that your unique purpose is like the things that light you up and inspire you. And when your intuition or your higher self is speaking to you and guiding you to these things, that is what you're here for. And when you follow that path, you are naturally going to meet the right people where you can give and receive and exchange energies that benefit both of you. So there's no need for the power play, power dynamics that we typically see. And it supports your evolution, not only as an individual in terms of your unique evolution, which I believe was the last insight, or the one before that. I talked about certain things from my mom's lineage, from my dad's lineage, patterns and passions or negative, kind of traumas and beliefs they had, limiting beliefs that I am transcending, and I'm getting to break the pattern and continue being fully me and sharing this fully in the world. That is part of my personal evolution, right? But it's also the way that I get to exchange with one another. And the ninth insight discusses how the incessant need to work full-time at jobs we don't like, or that aren't supporting us, or don't bring us passion and joy, and that actually disconnect us from our true self, that is going to continue to decrease, which, if you've been looking around and paying attention in the world over the last, I would say even like 10 years, we're seeing that drastically shift and open more and more up. So it touches on the use of technology, AI even, to support with some of these jobs so that people can work maybe part-time, but then have the rest of their time to focus on their specific passion, their specific purpose, their specific evolution. And as we've talked about in all of them, just to bring this to the forefront once more, it's not selfish to be doing that, because that is you being in your alignment, and therefore it's going to benefit all who it's meant to benefit, right? It's going to benefit a lot of others beyond just you. And when someone, for example, is working part-time to pay the bills and stuff, but then they've got all this time for their true excitement and their own personal evolution, and if they are then trusting, following the other insights of trusting the intuitive nudges, going after these things, following what feels good, they're going to naturally be led to the right people where there can be an exchange in terms of just conversation, or an exchange in terms of monetary value. And so people are going to continue to be more financially supported and provided for by their inherent gifts. And I know, even having my own coaching business for the last 5 years now, one of the reasons I started this, well, two things. Main reason I started this was because I found solutions to problems that had been really weighing me down, and I knew that I was meant to share those solutions with other people and help them alleviate their suffering much sooner and not feel alone in what they were going through. But the second reason is because I knew on a soul level that this is what I was meant to be doing, and that God didn't put me through these challenges for me to then sit behind a desk and cry to and from work every day and hate my life. Like, I knew that when I followed my alignment and when I followed what felt good to me and what felt like purpose and meaning, that I would be financially supported. And I can say, like, wholeheartedly that the last 5 years have been proof of that, because there were literally so many months where I had no idea how I was going to pay my rent in 2 days, or when I had no idea how I was going to pay an upcoming bill or support myself moving forward. And I held the faith, and I had to just trust that, like, somehow I am going to be supported in doing this, because I am meant to be helping people, and I'm meant to be sharing my tools, my courses, my videos, my posts and stuff with the world. And I'm stubborn, I'm really, really stubborn, but I just refuse to believe that I wouldn't be supported in what I'm good at, what I'm designed for, what comes natural to me. And I see this be a hang-up for so many people often, where they're afraid to get out of the normal 9-to-5 societal conditioning, maybe even family programming, and go after what their heart desires. They're afraid to do that because they don't believe they can make money doing it. They don't trust that they will be provided for. And my personal experience and deeply rooted belief is that God is the ultimate provider, and God designed you a certain way. So if you love writing, and if you're a beautiful channel to write into, and like that's what lights you up, you will be supported in doing that. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that it's going to always be like rainbows and butterflies, but if you can trust in that, you will continue to show up in that, you'll continue to create that, and that will show up in your reality. Just like the random clients would come in every time I had no idea how I was going to pay a bill, or I would say yes to moving to a new country. Even recently, I'm like moving again, and I took a huge break from my coaching business this year to redo everything in the back end and like make everything foundationally more supportive and aligned for me and how I operate. And I didn't have clarity of like if I could even pay rent in like a few weeks' time, but I trusted that like this is a place that's calling me here. It feels fully aligned. If I don't give the power to fear, I would believe that this is where I'm meant to go. It excites me, and I trust that. And so I said yes to this, manifested the place the next day. The seat sale for the flight was there on the exact day. And a couple days later, I just kept holding the faith, and I had multiple sales come in to cover the money. And actually, I even looked at my bank account one day, and there was just randomly more money. Like, it didn't even show where it came from, but I was like, I looked at this yesterday and I didn't have this much. So like, how did I suddenly get so much more? But it's like, God provides in really mysterious and magical ways when we trust and when we allow and when we open up to receive. So super huge tangent side note, but what we're going to continue to see moving on in the future generations is people realizing that their unique purpose and satisfaction and evolution towards their dreams, their desires, is in fact what they're here for. It's their mission. Of course, they're going to be supported in doing it. And we're going to start to see systems shifting a bit more to allow that to take place. Now, that's only a tiny fraction of the 9th insight. So now, because I've talked quite a bit, I want to get into the keys about it. So, this, depending on your personal beliefs, this can bring up a lot of disagreement, even, maybe. I don't know. It might feel strange. It might be, might not feel like a match depending on what you currently believe in. But I personally love it because I can see it from multiple angles, and I think there's a lot of truth to it, not only from like a spiritual lens, but also from a potentially religious lens. So let's read this part. That part's just about exchanging of energy, a more spiritual economy, supporting one another, where like we're giving, receiving, everyone's benefiting. And this is where we get into the process of evolution. So in this part of the book, they're speaking with Father, what was his name? Father Sebastian. And he is wanting to defend the beliefs of religion and of the church. So he is not agreeing with the insights. And that's kind of a huge premise of the whole book. But if you haven't read it and you're just tuning in for the insights themselves, that's why. But his issue with this and with the 9th insight specifically is because he doesn't like that there is power to the individual in their evolution. He believes it's all fully God. God created this, God designed this, God designed them that way, and not our unique evolution. Whereas the 9th insight starts to speak more to the fact that we have the ability to influence our evolution or speed up our evolution through our alignment. So as we are connecting to source, which is why I think it's such a beautiful message in this whole book of like, these insights are about connecting to God and realizing that God is within us. So when I connect to God, and for me, that's through my meditation, when I feel that connection, I will naturally have higher self wisdom or messages from God. I will have guidance of the next path, next step to take. I will feel so much better, more full of love, more supported, and I will show up in the world from a higher level version of me. When I am not connected to that, and when I am pulled into my control dramas, my aloofness, or maybe my interrogator, needing to know, wanting to control, having to ask all the questions and get all the answers, or if I'm operating from childhood programming or past pain or from fear, that is then me trying to take or gather or control someone else and reality itself, but not for the purpose of evolution, right? That's a different vibrational frequency than when I'm connected to source and I'm just overflowing love and I'm following the breadcrumbs and I'm therefore naturally evolving. So what's beautiful about the ninth insight and the fact of we're actually like co-creating with God. So like God has given us these passions and this higher level purpose. But if we're too busy stuck in the control dramas and the power dynamics with one another, of course we're never going to align with that. And so the evolution of humanity is stunted. And we can see that time and time again in culture, in humanity, where there's so much potential for things to grow and move in a positive direction, but because people are too busy being bullies and being stuck in their power dynamics, we're not fucking moving forward. And the reality is if they were connected to source, and if we were working on giving and receiving and these equal energy exchanges and having conscious communication with one another and actually understanding and let me lift you up because we all rise together. And then conversely, they're like, well, yeah, let me share something that can benefit you because I want to see you thrive. If we were actually working in this weave of connectedness, the world would be so different and humanity would be evolving at an even faster rate than it has been. Fortunately, we do have so many people who are operating this way now, and so we are starting to see that more and more. But it comes from that realization that, yes, God and the creator is the ultimate creator. So like we were designed a specific way, but it is up to us to become conscious so that we take our evolution seriously and we want to become better. We want to make the world around us better. We want to leave it better than when we started, right? And that is a natural process of evolution. So they discuss this and the fact that like, it's not actually this ninth insight, if anything, isn't about evolution and individuality. It's about truly being connected to source and allowing that to flow through us in our unique way. So my life's purpose and my greater mission is going to look very different than yours, most likely. The things that light me up and drive me forward and get me out of bed in the morning might be very different than yours. But when I'm connected to source and I'm following that, I'm moving things in a forward direction, just like you would be too if you followed yours. So there's no need for controlling and me telling you, do it my way. It's like you connect to source yourself and get your own guidance and follow that. And we all would be doing this work together, which, as I'm saying this, kind of reminds me of just like the concept of sovereignty in general, which I'm a firm believer of, is like, if we were never programmed with the brainwashing we've been given, most people, I believe every single person, would want to live from their heart and would want to be a good, kind person. They'd want their individuality, they'd want their independence, they'd want to be uniquely them, but they would do good with it. It's just the brainwashing and all the mass programming and heavy, heavy traumas that have caused us to disconnect from that, which then makes people less trusting of someone who is trying to be sovereign and not taking direction and not easily controllable. You know, people, the governments, those in control right now are afraid of anyone who is sovereign because they can't control them. They can't get what they want. And yet, if all of us were operating that way and the trauma and all the things didn't exist, we would see a really loving, connected human race, which I think is really beautiful. So last thing in this insight, and this is like this super, super cool one. Okay, let me get to them reading it. I want to read it directly. So the ninth insight reveals our ultimate destiny. It makes it all crystal clear, reiterates that as humans, we are the culmination of the whole of evolution. It talks about matter beginning in a weak form and increasing in complexity, element by element, then species by species, always evolving into a higher state of vibration. When primitive humans came along, we continued this evolution unconsciously by conquering others and gaining energy and then moving forward a little bit and then being conquered ourselves by someone else and losing our energy. This physical conflict continued until we invented democracy, a system that didn't end the conflict but shifted it from a physical to a mental level. But now we're bringing this whole process into consciousness. We can see that all of human history has prepared us to achieve conscious evolution. And now we can increase our energy and experience the coincidences consciously. This carries evolution onward at a faster pace, lifting our vibrations even higher. So our destiny is to continue to increase our energy level, right? Which is done through connecting directly to source. And as our energy level increases, the level of vibration in the atoms of our bodies increases, which means we're getting lighter and more purely spiritual. As humans continue to increase their vibration, amazing thing will begin to happen. Whole groups of people, once they reach a certain level, will suddenly become invisible to those who are still vibrating at a lower level. It will appear to the people on this lower level that the others just disappeared, but the group themselves will feel as though they are still right here, only they will feel lighter. And this ties in so many beautiful ways. We talked about in previous insights that glow that people have when they're connected to source, when they're connected to love, ultimately. And I know I see it in myself in times when I'm really aligned and I'm in this pure state of like bliss and joy and love, that I radiate in a different way compared to when I'm tired, when I'm angry, when I'm upset or stressed or in fear, right? And then I get this like dullness and there's this like heaviness. You can feel that I'm a heavier, denser being at that time. Even if you don't believe in energy, it's palpable, it's really noticeable. And like I have videos where I look at them and I'm like, oh yeah, I was so tired that day. Like everything about me just is like dull and more lifeless compared to when I'm following my alignment, when I'm doing the things that excite me and bring me joy, when I'm connecting with people in a like-minded way and it's like lifting me up and we're having that give and take, energizing one another, equal energy exchange, I feel myself vibrating higher and higher and just like radiating more of that glow. Now, the wild story I have about this that I think I don't even know if I've ever shared because it's kind of out there, but I've told it to a couple of friends and they totally got it. And like, it was indescribable. It was the wildest experience of my life up until that point. Now things have gone even wilder. But like, I was in Scotland a couple years ago and I was in a really deep healing process. My heart was cracked wide open from a relationship ending and moving through so much grief, so much heaviness. But at that time, I was focusing fully on just like my healing, my emotions, being with myself. And I started to have even stronger guidance from my higher self. I started to have some more connection with galactic beings. And this experience I'm about to share with you happened probably a month or so before I actually saw my first UFOs or UAPs flying above one night in Scotland. So I was in this really small town, and at the time I was doing lots of my quantum healing work, my energy work, hypnosis, a lot of subconscious reprogramming. And I was just in this really, really high vibe state. And I can't remember what had happened that day, but I was just feeling so good. And my intuition was like, you're gonna go to the castle today. So there was a castle nearby, but I had to walk through the main town to get there. And I seriously was like walking down the hill into the town, like just a little kid so excited about life. And I was like gonna like smile at people and just be friendly, and like I'm not one to like strike up random conversations, so I wasn't excited to like chat to strangers on the street necessarily, but I was just feeling really, really good. And it was like I hit like a bubble or something when I walked into the town because everything was so heavy. And I actually multiple times was walking on the sidewalk towards someone else. I would smile at them and they would look at me, but it was like they were looking right through me and they did not move, to the fact that we were both walking in our paths, in our direct, whatever pathway we were on, and I had to jump off the sidewalk at the last second because they didn't even flinch or budge a tiny bit. And it happened multiple times that I was like, am I invisible? Like, what is going on here? What's happened in this town? Why is everyone so like negative or fearful, or just like, it felt very doom and gloom, and everyone was like just not in a nice place. And I had walked in that town multiple times before, and usually people were quite friendly. So it was the most surreal experience. And I remember texting my mom, and I was like, hey, this is gonna sound crazy, but I honestly think I'm like invisible. I was like, no one sees me. And like, I felt invisible before, but in different contexts. But this was like, people are actually gonna walk right into me because they don't see me, or like they're so consumed by whatever is going on in their own life. But like, it was just the strangest thing. And I talked to one of my friends later, a few weeks after that, and explained the same thing to her. And she's like in her 60s, she's years beyond me in all this energetic work and stuff going on in the planet and everything. And I was like, this might sound crazy, but I know you'll get it. I was like, I was in such a high vibrational place that it honestly felt like we were in a different reality. Like a parallel reality was taking place where we were both in the same, or me and the other people, all of us, were in the same physical vicinity, but we were in two different worlds. And she was like, oh, 100%. It's because the frequency, the vibration was so different. So like, you weren't a vibrational match for the state that they were all operating in. Not to say like I had transcended it, but I was just like way up here. And so when we do even look at that on a quantum level with particles, right? And you look at particles that are vibrating all the time, and when they're vibrating faster, things are moving faster, or we're looking at the ways that it's actually lighter and not seen, but the particles are still there, right? And so we just don't come into contact with something because the vibrating particles aren't a match to like hit in the physical. It actually makes a lot of sense. So the more we do the energetic work, and even thinking of God, right? And the creator itself is an energetic being. It's not a physical man sitting in the sky. It's not something you can touch in that way, right? So it's a vibrational frequency that is extremely high level, way higher level than I was vibing that day in Scotland, but it's a frequency nonetheless. And so the more we are connected to that frequency, to that level of unconditional love, then of course that is going to directly impact our physical vessels and our physical reality and experience. And last thing on that note is that it's even proven in the vibrational scale of emotions. When you look, and when they have studied heavier, denser emotions such as grief, fear, shame, guilt, anger, these emotions vibrate very low. They are very dense, they're very heavy, and it's scientifically proven. But when you study the emotional frequency of love and enlightenment, which I think is maybe the top one, but I forget, they're way, way higher. They are registering way higher on the vibrational scale. So it's like this lightness is a different frequency. And that is truly what the ninth insight is all about. The fact that when you are in that incredible beauty, that incredible energy, that connection to love, then you are opening up to create heaven on earth. And this is my favorite part, which I will start to end this video with, is that it goes on to share an experience similar to the one I just described, where they reached this frequency. They were all feeling it. They were now at Mayan ruins. There were pyramids there. It was a sacred site. The energy of the place itself was very high, just like we have sacred sites and portals on the planet now that emit a different level of frequency. And they were all in this state of like awe and bliss and love and excitement, that they were all vibrating in this different frequency. And so when the soldiers showed up, they actually couldn't see one another, just like people in Scotland couldn't see me. And I was like, I'm smiling at you. I'm like literally even waved at a few people. I'm walking right towards you. You're looking straight at me, and yet you're not, there's zero acknowledgement or awareness that I'm here in front of you. And it's like crazy. So what happens is one of the gentlemen actually transcends, which is ironic because there are a lot of theories about this being what truly happened to a lot of Mayan civilizations. And this book takes place in Peru, which I don't know if I've ever mentioned on any of these, but now you know. last 2 minutes and now you know. So there's actually a lot of beliefs that is what happened with like Mayan civilizations, is that their communities were understanding and living at such a conscious, or in such a conscious way with one another, and such a harmonious, deep connection to source itself, that it's not like scientists have gone to these places and been like, it's like they just disappeared, like nothing was left, and there was no trace of where they went to next, nothing in our history books that shows us where they could have gone to, or what like their evolution was. And it's because the evolution went past the physical. And as we evolve in the physical first, with our careers, with our communication, with our deep healing and clearing out of the control traumas, childhood trauma, all the things. And as we begin to feel lighter in our physical bodies, then it really does become a very energetic journey. And the more we connect and transcend and vibrate higher energetically, then that is what comes next. You transcend the physical, and your energetic body, your soul, is still existing. So it's beautiful. I'll end it here, is that it ties in with some of the beliefs of like the rapture, some of these beliefs of like the end of times, a lot of things that are still very fear-based, because a lot of humans have dismissed the fact that they're more than just the physical body. So if you think you're just the physical body, of course there's going to be fear about dying and fear about the end times, because what you believe in would stop. Your physical self would be gone. But I know from my own experiences after losing Derek too, and my connection with him afterwards, like we go and we exist far beyond the physical. So this says, fear lowers one's vibration tremendously. The ninth insight says that while some individuals may cross over sporadically, a general rapture will not occur until we have abolished fear, until we can maintain a sufficient vibration in all situations. Don't you see? We can't do it yet, but the role of the ninth insight is to help create that confidence. The ninth insight is the insight of knowing where we are headed. All the other insights create a picture of the world as one of incredible beauty and energy, and of ourselves as increasing our connection with, and thus seeing this beauty. The more beauty we can see, the more we evolve. The more we evolve, the higher we vibrate. The ninth insight shows us that ultimately our increased perception and vibration will open us up to a heaven that is already before us. We just can't see it yet. Whenever we doubt our path or lose sight of the process, we must remember what we are evolving toward, what the process of living is all about. Reaching heaven on earth is why we are here, and now we know how it can be done, how it will be done. And I love ending it on that note because we're coming out of a time where fear is the predominant emotion on earth. And that sounds maybe silly because I know there is still a lot of negativity and I know there is a lot of fear. And I want to cry because it's like there is a lot. So I'm not trying to act like there isn't. But more and more people are continuing to choose love alongside that, which is beautiful. And it's in our conscious decision to keep trying to find love, trying to find more positivity, even in the midst of darkness and evil and corruption and war and all the things that we see still playing out. That is how we do evolve. And there's a reason those in control right now have tried to keep us all in fear for so long, because they don't want the evolution. They don't want people to remember the truth. They don't want us to be feeling good and remembering that we are always, always connected to a loving creator. So if I can leave you with anything from these insights and from my own personal experience and journey and just from my heart, it's to realize that love always wins and that you are so much more than just your physical being. And the more you can connect to your heart, connect to your higher self, connect to God, and realize that we are all truly in this together, the more you're going to receive those magical intuitive guidance, pings leading you where you're meant to be. And the more confidence you'll feel following your unique path. The right people will always be brought to you, and together we can all consciously evolve and realize that heaven is already on earth. It's a different frequency. Heaven is already here right now, but it's vibrating at a frequency of love and not a frequency of fear. And the more you get yourself aligned with the frequency of love, I don't know why I said it like that. The more you get yourself aligned with the frequency of love, the more you are going to be surrounded by people and experiences and opportunities that match that frequency. Like attracts like. So keep pushing forward to where it is you feel called to be. Keep being a conscious co-creator of your evolution and working alongside a loving creator and other loving human beings who want nothing more than to see you thriving and succeeding and absolutely enjoying all that there is to enjoy on this human experience. So thank you so much for being here with me for these insights and for this book. I personally have absolutely loved it. Obviously, I was not meant to start reading it years ago when I first heard about it. It could not have come into my life at a more perfect time these last few weeks. If you found this helpful, if you enjoyed these insights, please drop something in the comments. Let me know. I'd love to also hear any different things you picked up on or key things that really stood out to you or your own personal experience going through this together. Please feel free to share. I look forward to hearing from you and reading your comments. And we will start another book probably soon. And sending so much love your way. And here's to the beautiful reality we are creating.